Hey everyone, Robbie O'Leaf here, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Ramblings. Once again for the week, we're going to talk about Chucky. This time we're going to talk about the Season 2 Chucky premiere, which debuted last week on Wednesday. So this is going to be a recap, as well as a few thoughts on what I like, what I don't like, what I expect from the season. And we're going to kind of follow a linear path this time. The season starts. Basically, it shows you what happened with Andy at the end of the season when he's kidnapped by Tiffany. A couple of the new dolls in the back come alive, and they seem to be newborns. I guess you'd say they don't actually recognize Tiffany or Andy, and there's a weird scene where Andy he recognizes this and he mentions to Tiffany that they don't know what you did. And I'm assuming he's referring to the fact that Tiffany killed one of the Chuckies in order to protect Nika. But if that's what he's referring to, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. How does Andy know that happened? The house that happened at exploded, and Andy hadn't even arrived when that happened. Did he and Devon stop and have a conversation at that point? I don't think so. Devon never mentioned that Andy was alive when he met back up with Jake. So that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And if that is what he's referring to, how does doll Tiffany know this happened? I suppose it is possible that human Tiffany told her at some point, but just a weird scene that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Characters seem to know stuff at times that they shouldn't. Such as, I still want to know, how did Andy and Kyle have any idea what Chucky's plan was? Like, how did they know that Chucky's plan involved getting a kid to kill for them? Where did that come from? Can we get an explanation on that, or are we just supposed to look away from that? So, in a scene that kind of reminded me a bit of Bride of Chucky, the scene where Jesse and Jade are able to kind of temporarily escape from Chucky and Tiffany by wrecking the van. Andy swerves the USX van that he's driving. Tiffany tries to shoot him and misses. Andy gets the gun and puts a bullet right through the Tiffany doll's head, which was actually kind of a disappointing first meeting between Andy and Tiffany. I was hoping for a hell of a lot more than that, and instead he kills her within like 3 minutes. And this is the first time we've really seen a doll outside of a 2-second cameo. A doll of Tiffany, I should say, in quite some time. So I'm kind of disappointed. The Chuckies kind of start to piece together what's going on. It finally dawns on them that this is Andy. So they have some knowledge, I guess, of him now. And so in a super creepy scene, all the dolls start cutting themselves out of their boxes so they can attack Andy. Andy basically drives off a cliff, saying, "This is for Kyle," in order to, I guess he's trying to kill the Chuckies. I don't know if he's trying to kill the Chuckies or just stop them from getting distributed. I don't know. I don't know why anyone would think that this would kill a bunch of Chuckies. With everything they've survived, this would maybe kill like 3 of them. And the rest might be temporarily hurt, but they'll just get up and keep moving. Not the greatest plan. But, so he drives off a cliff, and I think the van explodes. It then shows us what the boys are doing, or what's going on with their lives, I should say. Both are in foster homes. Jake's mom is, not Jake, Devon's mom is dead. Jake's aunt and uncle are dead. So, Jake lives with a couple who are also raising another foster kid, a little kid named Gary, while Devon has a foster mother who's not around much. So there's kind of I guess it's supposed to be sentimental scene as they say goodbye for a while because Jake's going to be living 2 hours away. I actually didn't care for this scene. It felt like they were trying to pull at our heartstrings, and I'm just like, you haven't been building up to this. This is just all of a sudden thrown on us, and we know it's not going to last. I didn't actually care for this scene too much. But they promised to see each other over the weekend, and then we're told that it's 6 months later. And suddenly, Jake is living in Salem. I I guess that he and Devon have not seen each other much through all this time. There's a scene where Jake opens the door to a trick-or-treater because it's Halloween now, and he's startled by this little clown who's kind of got a wig that is red. And I guess it made him think of Chucky for a bit. Creepy little kid in the clown outfit, though. I kind of hope they bring him back. He fit in really well, though given how this episode progresses, it's hard to imagine he'll appear again. So Jake is getting ready to take little Gary out trick-or-treating. Jake is dressed as Batman, and Gary is dressed as Robin. He gets a call on his phone, and it's very obviously Chucky calling. Brad Dourif is using a different inflection in his voice, but you can tell it's Chucky. And what didn't make a whole lot of sense to me is that Jake doesn't immediately recognize the voice. Even if his mind doesn't immediately pick up the "this is Chucky" vibe, I feel like everything he went through would have created a psychological trauma where he'd still have a tense reaction to Chucky's voice, even if he can't quite picture what happened. So that was kind of weird that he has no recognition. Chucky asks him, "Is Tamara home?" Which I thought was actually a kind of neat reference to the movie The Strangers. If no one has, if you haven't seen The Strangers, it is a home invasion movie. And before the invaders really start invading, one of them knocks at the door. And when the protagonists answer, the woman asks, "Is Tamara home?" They tell her no, she leaves, only to come back a short while later, knock on the door, and once again ask if Tamara's home. And it was a really creepy scene in the movie, because obviously you know something's wrong here. Why would you show up at the same door and ask for the same question, "Is Tamara home?" So you knew something was off with this woman. And so Chucky kind of plays into that with this line, and he does call back later and asks the same question. So I really like that homage to Tamara. Between the two calls, he gets a call from Devon, and we find out Devon is expecting Jake, who is staying there to go Halloween trick-or-treating with Gary. And Devon's disappointed. He asks why Jake is staying there. He doesn't even get along with his his step-parents, who forbid him to go see Devon because they don't approve of them dating. And Devon's just like, screw him. But Jake doesn't want to go because while he has no attachment to the foster parents, he does really love Gary. So he decides to stay there. Eventually, Chucky does call back and kind of reveals something creepy is going on. He doesn't come right out and say who he is, but he does ask Jake, "Why are you home alone with your brother?" And when he begins talking to Devon again, we find out Devon also got a creepy call from someone. Jake originally assumes that it's a homophobic boy from his school, but all of a sudden they get a joint call from someone who is video calling as he knocks at Lexy's door. Caroline answers, and he talks to Caroline, and it's clearly Chucky's voice. He mutes the phone so that Caroline will no longer hear Devon or Jake, so they can't warn her. And they don't see Chucky, so they don't know 100% for sure it's him. But he claims to be the ghost of Halloween's past and asks if he can come in to use the restroom. And when he goes in, he kind of shows Devon and Jake him creeping around in the house where Lexy's making out with her boyfriend. So the boys panic, and Jake tells Devon to call the police, to use his landline and call the police so he can stay on the phone and see what's happening. And in the scene I like, it shows that Jake is not a complete moron. Devon's originally like, "They're not going to believe me." And Jake says, "Don't tell them about Chucky," which is something that I've always thought was weird in horror movies like this, especially ones with supernatural twists, where you know the police aren't going to believe you if you tell them the true story. So don't tell them the true story, just a guy in a mask. They can find out all the supernatural crap when they arrive, but make it believable so they'll respond to you instead of saying crap that they won't believe. So I like that we see that Jake actually does have a brain in his head. So Devon does call the police, and while this is going on, we kind of see what Lexy's up to. Lexy is not on a good path. Whereas Jake and Devon still consider to be, or still seem to be maturing, Lexy seems like she's backslided. She's not as mean as she was, but she's back on marijuana and kind of seems a bit grumpy. And she does have a line I don't like about how Caroline won't interrupt her and her boyfriend because she has Caroline well trained. I didn't like that too much, kind of douchey. But the police arrive and mention that they got a call of a break-in. And Lexy learns that they were called by Devon Evans, who Lexy, obviously knows. So she checks her phone and sees that she's got texts that Chucky is alive and is after her. But we learned from Caroline that he's already left, so he's clearly just taunting them at this point. So we find out that Lexy Michelle, that's the name of their mother, the former mayor. She's no longer mayor. She was recalled after all the murders last year. But the two of them are in family therapy with Caroline. We learn that Junior has been blamed for all the murders from last year, which doesn't make a lot of sense. How does everyone think Junior got under those seats without anyone ever seeing him? Not to mention there's at least one that I can recall broken doll with body parts in it. His body does take on human characteristics. I guess it's one of those things we have to overlook, but I just feel like there's no way Junior could be blamed for getting under the seat and stabbing and killing multiple people. He was small. He's not that small, and he would have been seen. But Caroline, of course, insists that it was Chucky who did it. She now realizes Chucky is bad, finally. But everyone tells her she's wrong, including Lexy, who we can see is conflicted. She doesn't want to tell her sister that she's wrong, but of course she'll look crazy if she doesn't. One thing I really hated was, once again, Michelle showing herself to be Mother of the Year, making snotty comments about Lexy bringing Junior into their lives, which I hate that Dr. Mixter, who was the same therapist for Bree last season, didn't call Michelle out on that. I didn't like that. Quit blaming your child for everything. Your child, as awful as she used to be, is not responsible for half the crap you are blaming her for. So we find out that Caroline is traumatized by all dolls at this point, not just Chucky dolls. They got rid of all her dolls. But Dr. Mixter wants to kind of get her reacquainted with dolls and gives her a wedding bell doll. Wedding bells are the doll that Tiffany used to possess. The Tiffany doll, remember the black hair from Bride of Chucky before she dyed blonde? Those dolls are called wedding bells, and she gives one to Caroline. And it was kind of creepy seeing this doll for the first time in such a long time. Yes, we've seen the Tiffany doll, but because she's blonde and she's not wearing the wedding dress, she doesn't really look like that doll anymore. And to see that doll was a really cool throwback to Bride of Chucky. So back at home, Lexy does admit the truth to Caroline. Yes, it was Chucky, but we can't say anything. And she ties up the wedding bell doll because she wants Caroline to believe that all dolls are bad. In fact, before tying it down, she beats the living crap out of it to try to make sure it's not alive. After this, Jake and Devon arrive. The kids are finally getting back together for the first time in 6 months. And there's kind of a weird scene where when Jake sees Lexy is smoking a joint, Lexy kind of gets super, super defensive. And Jake's comment really wasn't anything that should have resulted in that. And so there's this kind of weird vibe going on there. Like, they became close. They haven't seen each other for a while, and they immediately kind of start butting heads. Isn't really the right term. They're not full-blown arguing, but it was just a weird scene. They begin talking about the Belle doll, and they reference how it looks like the doll that was in the movie Bride of Chucky, starring Jennifer Tilly. So the kids now actually know who Jennifer Tilly is, and they know that Tiffany has possessed the actress. Last season, they didn't recognize Jennifer Tilly. So now they know who she is fully. While they're talking, it's at night, and they're in Caroline's room. They're shocked to see that Caroline has untied Belle and is sleeping with her. Lexy shoves the guys in the closet, which I'm surprised they didn't make a joke about at some point. Her shoving the gay couple into the closet. And Michelle comes in, and Lexy just claims that she was checking in on Caroline and singing her a lullaby. And this is probably the first time since like episode 2 of last season that Michelle just doesn't come across as completely awful. She doesn't make a snotty comment to Lexy, which I was expecting. I was expecting something like, "Oh, you don't care about your sister," or something like that. But instead, she just pulls Caroline from the room. Um, after, or backtrack real quick. Looking through my notes, I missed something that I want to go back to real quick before I continue. Right before this scene, there was a interview that Michelle was having because she is trying to get reelected mayor, and so she's using the kids as props. And God, is she nauseating to listen to her attempts to sound all sweet. And she just infuriates me. Um, the reporter, though, seems to cross the line when he begins asking Caroline if her new doll, Belle, talks to her like her old doll did. Um, Michelle and Lexi are like, "What are you talking about?" And of course, he references the scene from last season where Caroline publicly told everyone that Chucky told her to kill her mom and Lexi. So that they didn't forget that. That is referenced. Michelle just freaks out and throws the reporter out of the house, which I'm sure is going to go over well with the voters. So skip back to where I was getting to in my notes. The next morning, Lexi questions why is what's her name, Caroline, now carrying around Belle. Caroline insists Belle is just a regular doll; she's not alive, and she also has a heartbreaking comment that I don't want mommy to get mad anymore, which really just shows how awful Michelle just is in general. Most of the time last season, her impatience and horrible parenting seemed directed mostly towards Lexi. She did seem supportive of Caroline, though there were instances where she would make inappropriate comments, like, "Why does she have to do this when I'm getting ready?" or something like that. But we can see that Caroline also realizes that mommy's got issues that hopefully a Chucky stabbing will take care of at some point this season. Um, so Lexi goes back upstairs and begins talking with Jake and Devon. And while that's going on, she leaves them temporarily and goes into the bathroom. And we find out that she is using her mother's pills from the medicine cabinet, smashing them up and inhaling them. While she's doing that, there's a knock at the door, and Caroline answers it, and it's little Gary, Jake's foster brother, who's carrying Chucky, who is very much showing that he's alive and carrying a bomb. Jake and Devon comes downstairs, and Chucky forces them all to gather together. He plans to blow all 5 of them up with the bomb as soon as Lexi comes downstairs. Gary does not realize the danger they're in. He knows it's a bomb, but he seems to think this is a game. And Jake tries to tell him it isn't, but Gary doesn't really seem to believe that. So while they're down there, Chucky references how easy it is nowadays for a possessed doll to go around killing people. In the past, you always had to basically kidnap someone at knife point to force them to do something, and now he could use Uber or some other means, just basically mail himself places. So that was kind of a fun reference. Chucky references that he also wants to kill Tiffany, so I'm guessing this doll is aware of her betrayal. I still want to know, what does each doll know about what happens with other dolls? Because I don't think there was any other witnesses there. So how does he even know what Tiffany did last season? So Devon begins questioning Chucky to find out how many more of the Chucky dolls are left. earlier on, they had discussed Andy's car crash and how Andy is seemingly dead, though no body was found. And Devon mentioned that he didn't see how anything could have survived the crash, though Chucky dolls, I would honestly not expect many at all to die, like I said earlier. So he begins questioning that, and Chucky doesn't give numbers. He's just basically like, there's enough of me to make this sacrifice. He's completely willing to blow himself up to kill the kids, knowing full well other versions of himself are out there. So they begin questioning, is Andy alive? Chucky says no. Devon then asks if Kyle is alive, and Chucky says no. I thought it was weird that the kids don't know more about that. They know that Kyle was caught in the explosion. We know that bodies were found. The news report specifically said fatalities, more than one, and yet we've never heard anything about that. Shouldn't was Kyle, or if she was there, I don't think she was. I think they're going to come up with some bullcrap that there were multiple bodies there that somehow no one saw. But you would think they would already assume Kyle is dead. I understand questioning about Andy. No body was there. But there were bodies recovered at Charles Lee Ray's house, according to the fatalities line. So, a little bit of bad writing in my view. So when Lexy finally comes downstairs, her vision all blurry from the drugs she's taking, Chucky gets distracted by her long enough to let Devon shock him with his taser, which I love about Devon. He's not just a generic love interest for Jake. We see he's got an investigative side. He loves carrying around his taser. Remember, you did that last season as well. So he saves them from the bomb temporarily. Excuse me. When Chucky falls over and drops the bomb, Gary grabs the bomb, still thinking this is all a game, and he runs into the kitchen where he's stopped by the Belle doll. Belle doesn't move at all, but he seems thrown off, and Belle is kind of creepy looking. So when he's looking at the doll, all of a sudden Chucky jumps on his back, stabs him in the chest, and the bomb explodes. It then goes to a commercial, and when we come back, Lexy, Jake, and Devon are being questioned, and we learn that, yes, Gary is dead. This was a pretty sad scene. And up to this point, we've never seen Chucky kill someone so young. He certainly tried to, but he's never succeeded. The only death that of a child that I can recall would be Alice from Curse of Chucky, and we still didn't even see that death. But the kids are being blamed for the death because, of course, no one's going to believe a murderous doll showed up with a bomb. So it's believed that the kids built the bomb and it accidentally exploded. So whoever the guy talking is, I'm guessing the DA, I'm not sure, is talking about sending them somewhere. Dr. Mixter suggests the School of the Incarnate Lord, which she has worked for before and claims has seen great results. So when she gets that through, and the kids are transported to this school. On the way, they discuss how for Chucky to be willing to sacrifice himself like that, there's at least one other doll. And of course, Chucky is going to come back for them. That's what he does. Lexy mentions a kid named Trevor Kane, who we don't know, but apparently all the kids do. He used to bully Lexy when she was in kid. Maybe they're going to try to eventually go into this is why Lexy was so terrible, because she used to be bullied. And she does reference that he made her life hell. I think she says something like, he's who I learned everything from. Something like that. We find out that he's been at the School of the Incarnate Lord for the past 3 years. So I'm guessing he's going to be this season's Lexy. We don't meet him this episode, but it's coming up. As the kids arrive, Jake finds the place to be familiar, and Devon recognizes that the School of Incarnate Lord is the old Burlington Home for Wayward Boys, which is where Charles Lee Ray was sent after his kids were murdered. This is the scene where, this references the flashback to last season when he was a teenager and met Eddie Caputo. So the kids are now going to the school where Charles Lee Ray spent quite a bit of time at. And that leaves me wondering, is Dr. Mixter somehow mixed up in all of this? Last season, it didn't seem to be the case. She seemed like a normal psychiatrist to Bree. But this season, it's weird that she just so happens to give Caroline the same type of doll that Tiffany possessed. And now she's sending all the kids who've been traumatized by Chucky, though I guess she might not know that since they don't tell everyone that. But anyway, still, she's sending all these kids to the place that Chucky was sent to. So that does leave one wondering what's going on with her. And then as the kids are walking around the school, we see a USX truck arrive. That's the same kind of truck that Andy was driving at the beginning, carrying all the dolls. And sure enough, we see a package is being dropped off. And the package is about the size of a Chucky doll. So that's where the first episode ended. I didn't get to see any previews for next week. I personally don't have cable, so I have to watch it online, which might be an issue for me this year, because when I checked, or even earlier today, it was not up on any of the usual sites. Amazon, Google Play, Vudu. Last year, what I did was I bought a season pass on YouTube, and I would watch the episodes the next day, but that option is not currently available. So I might not actually be able to finish watching the rest of the season until it debuts on Peacock after the whole season is over. Hopefully that's not the case, and the episodes will start to get posted. Right now, I watched the first episode on Sci-Fi's website, and it'll be great if they continue doing that. But I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, I want to think they only did that for like the first episode. So if they don't do that, or if they don't start releasing the episodes on YouTube or something, I'm not going to be able to watch. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. But if there were scenes, I didn't see them because I was watching it on Sci-Fi's website. But one thing I'm kind of dreading this season is I really, really hope they're not going to use the whole religious setting as a plot device for making Jake and Devon's lives hell for being gay. I could get the school's not going to be super accepting, but I hope they don't dwell on it a super lot. I've watched so many things now that I'm kind of over this whole gay kid being, mistreated for being gay. If Devon and Jake are going to have problems in the relationship, I really wish it would not tie into that kind of thing. Like, I liked last season when Devon felt they should quit seeing each other for a while because he was dealing with his mother's death. But I just don't want the school to come between them. Like, can we get something other than that trope? That is so played out. Alright, guys, that's going to be it for this Wednesday Ramblings. I hope I'm going to be able to continue watching Chucky this season. If I am, I may or may not do an episode recap with my thoughts on it after each episode. I haven't decided yet. I don't know if I want to do so many consecutive Wednesday Ramblings devoted to Chucky, but we'll see if I'm able to continue. And if not, obviously, I'll just talk about something else next week. But that is all for this week. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'm going to ravioli. Later, everyone.